Well, hi, everybody. Rich Grisham here, along with my friends Brian Weedi from Pasta Padre and TJ Lowerman from That Sports Gamer. You may know us from the Press Row podcast. You certainly, I would imagine, know Brian from Pasta Padre, as we mentioned earlier. We are here today to talk about perhaps one of the hidden gems of the sports game world, and that is called EA Access. It is a service that is available only through Microsoft's Xbox platform, not through the Sony PlayStation platform, which is one of the many things that we'll get into. But there's been a lot of talk about it. In particular, article on the Sporting News has brought it to light a little bit more. So we're here tonight to talk a bit more in depth about EA Access. So why don't we start right with the big question, which a lot of people may not know, Brian Weedi, which is, what exactly is EA Access?
Yeah, so EA Access is a subscription service offered, like you said, on the Xbox One. It's $30 for a year, or you can also pay month to month, $5 a month. And basically, it offers a number of perks for subscribers. So you get access to the Vault, which is a collection of older EA games. You also get a discount on digital purchases, a 10% discount. And in addition to that, you get some early play time with games, so you actually get to play them for a number of hours before they release. So this is something that launched last August to kind of a mixed reaction. I think some people were a little skeptical, some maybe perturbed that it wasn't available on PlayStation 4. But perception of it, I think, has changed a lot over the coming months, and we'll talk about why.
So TJ Lowerman, if you were right now, if you did not own a PlayStation 4 nor an Xbox One, but you were in the market to get one, would the EA Access service potentially lead you down the path of Microsoft's Xbox platform as opposed to Sony's?
Definitely. I really like the 10% off of the digital games initially. That's a nice little thing. But now that they've expanded it to, I think it's 9 games total, and over half of them are sports titles, I think it's a great value purchase for anybody that really wants to play these games. And you also get, I think it's Battlefield 4, Plants vs. Zombies, Garden Warfare, Need for Speed Rivals. You get a lot of choices, and they're only going to keep adding games. They just added Madden today when we're recording this. NBA Live is already in there, I think.
Yep.
And FIFA will probably be there right around the corner too. So, great thing.
The interesting thing about it is a service that could appeal to several types of people that like games, and we're going to sort of stay around sports games, but also, as you mentioned, there are others. But for people who are not the really into sports games in the way that we are, where, as soon as the game is available day one, we all go out there and we get it. We get Madden when it comes out, we get FIFA, we get NBA 2K, and so on. But kind of once the next version of that sports game is out, last year's title kind of becomes just something that sits on a shelf. So to people like us, in one regard, having access to a game that's a year plus old or from a previous season may not be that interesting, but to somebody who likes sports games and doesn't need to be using the newest, latest, best, it is, as you mentioned, TJ, a great word, the value of that. However, for people like us, you also do get, as you mentioned, TJ, 6 hours early access to the sports games as well as other EA games before they become available to the general public. So in some ways, it's a really interesting way, and that can appeal to people who are both the quote-unquote casuals as opposed to, as well as, the hardcore. Brian Weedi, go ahead.
Yeah. Even us, even the more hardcore, as you said, sports gamers don't generally buy every single sports game that comes out. I remember EA saying a statistic a few years ago that there's only like a 10% overlap of people who bought Madden and NCAA football. So the idea that everybody just goes and buys every one of EA's games it's not true. They buy 1 or 2 every year. And so what this allows is a chance to play games that maybe they normally would not have purchased or even played at all. Whether that be NHL or UFC, there's a lot of games that might appeal to sports fans that maybe just not enough at $60. But when it's part of a subscription program like this, you jump in and you give it a shot. Maybe you end up liking it, maybe you don't, but you're not out anything because it's just a value add with every game they put in there.
So before we go any further, let's make sure that we outline specifically, Ryan Weed, I'm going to go back to you for this. What exactly is the cost, and what are the key features, and what games were in the vault at the start, and what games are in there right now?
Yeah, so at the start, in the vault, and that's just, again, one of the features of EA Access. In the vault, it was Madden 25, FIFA 14, Battlefield 4, and Peggle 2. Since then, they've added 5 more games. TJ rattled them off. And in the last 3 months, it's been UFC, which was a game that had come out in July. So that was only 6 months after release. Last month, it was NBA Live 15, and the NBA season is only half over at this point. Or if you count how long the playoffs run on, it may not even be half.
Yep.
And then Madden just got added because the season's over. And so as you mentioned, Rich, the games come in late, but they're not coming in so late that they're completely irrelevant.
Right.
Especially with a game like Madden, where the season is over, so people have stopped buying Madden, but people still play it. And especially once we get into free agency and stuff, people will be moving their new players under their favorite teams. This gives you a chance to go in there and play it. If you already owned it on Xbox One, you could sell that copy and use it through EA Access, and you actually make some money off it.
Good point.
So there's a lot of just the availability opens up a lot of things. Besides the vault, again, you do get the 10% off digital purchases, which can be the actual games, or it could be within the games for DLC or Ultimate Team, and then the early play time again. So those 3 things kind of target different type of consumers, but all together, again, for $30 a year, it's pretty amazing. Because I went and looked, and rather than get into this later, I'll do it now. I went and looked at some of the games that you can get in the vault on Xbox One, because Sony's reason for not allowing the EA Access on the PS4 was they said that it didn't meet the value that PlayStation consumers expect. It was basically that they were saying there was no value there. They have ulterior motives, but they said there was no value. So I wanted to look and see what it would cost to buy these games on their own. Madden on the PS4 right now, to buy it digitally in the Sony store, it's $60 still. It's still full retail price. So you could buy 2 years of EA Access on Xbox One for the price of Madden on the PS4. And you'd get Madden on the Xbox One plus 8 other games plus all the other perks. NBA Live 15 is $30 digital on PS4. Madden 25, a year-and-a-half-old game, is $30 digital on PS4. EA UFC is $30 digital on PS4. So you could buy one of those $30 games on the PS4, or you could buy EA Access, which has all 9 of them included. And it's not just sport games; it's all the others that they shuffle in. So it's really an interesting thing, and it's not something that I was totally sold on at first. I don't subscribe even now. But I think it's a great value for people who don't necessarily buy these games on day one.
There are several interesting angles to look at. TJ Larriman, one of them is that this is an entirely digital service, right? So it's the EA Access and the games in the vault, which, by the way, once it's in the vault, it never leaves. So the list of games is only going to get bigger, but it is all digital. You don't have a physical disc. Everything gets loaded onto the hard drive. TJ Larriman, obviously, I mean, Electronic Arts is in the business of making money. Microsoft is in the business of making money. This is, if you look at a pure digital-to-digital comparison, a tremendous value over what Sony offers digitally, although, of course, you can buy probably all of the games that you mentioned. Brian, go to your local game store, in the used section and buy them for a fraction of that. But long story short, it seems to me that one of the other reasons for this is to get people used to and perhaps even preferring owning games digitally. TJ, do you think that is part of what's going on, and do you think that that is a push that will continue to get stronger as we move forward in this Xbox One / PlayStation 4 generation?
Yeah, I definitely think that's something they're going to push forward to, because the thing you see is, yes, these titles are still, full $60 when you're buying just the bits, and that works out for them way better than if you're going out and buying a retail copy where they have to put advertising in stuff. So they're saving a ton of money by doing this. And the sneaky thing is, it's like they put out Madden right now, all these people are going to jump in, and all they're going to have is all these people saying, hey, you're not going to get a new roster. Why don't you jump into Ultimate Team, spend a couple bucks over there? And I think that's pretty brilliant. They're having some big promo now with ESPN, with Scott Van Pelt show with stuff in Ultimate Team now, so they're getting more word of mouth that way towards this. Actually, you mentioned going to the store and buying it used. I just looked on Amazon. Madden used is $31 for the retail copy. So for that price, you can come here and be good. I also think for people like us that are going to get every single sports game, this is a good way to be like, hey, brother or friend, why don't you go get this? We can play a little FIFA, play a little Madden, see if you like it, and then maybe next year you go get the full copy. And that's just a way to make the ecosystem bigger, get more people playing, and get more money rolling into them.
Yep, that's a good point. And one of the reasons that publishers, video game publishers like Electronic Arts, like Activision, like Ubisoft they like digital purchases is because they make more money when someone buys a game digitally as opposed to buying a physical copy. And that's because to distribute a physical copy, you have to create the disc, you have to create the box, you have to do the shrink wrap, you have to ship it to different places. There's a significant cost.
And in addition to that, there's no used game market digitally. So
That's right.
People aren't able to go out and just get the game for cheap because everybody's got it on their hard drives and they can't get rid of it.
That's right.
And in retail, they don't make any money on that used game sale. So the few cents that they might get per game over the course of somebody's lifetime of EA Access is more than they would ever get on if that person just went in at the end of the season and bought the games used from a GameStop or another store like that.
And you mentioned it also, TJ, Ultimate Team. While, a lot of people will not buy Madden now until the next one comes out, a lot of people are playing Ultimate Team. A lot of people don't know what Ultimate Team is. Ultimate Team is fantasy football in Madden and in FIFA and in NBA Live, where you get these virtual card packs, and that becomes your team, and you can upgrade them, and you can sell the cards in auctions and bid for others, and you can spend real-world dollars in these economies to make your team better as well. So there's even further benefit. It gets people used to owning a game digitally, which would increase the chances they'll buy next year's game digitally, which gives EA a higher margin on the game. Plus, they will have, any dollar spent in Ultimate Team by virtue of having the game in EA Access is every dollar is one more than they would have gotten had they not. And again, it also increases the number of people who might get into Ultimate Team. So there's a lot of aspects to this, in addition to just offering what to me looks like a service where everyone is a winner. The consumer is a winner because they get a significant amount of content at a price much less than what they would have to pay individually. Electronic Arts is a winner because they're increasing the adoption of digital copies, and they're increasing the number of people who would be exposed to Ultimate Team. And Microsoft is a winner because it's a differentiator of their service. I'm a PlayStation 4 guy in this generation, but I'm telling you right now, there will come a time, probably before September, where I will buy EA Access because it will make sense for me to have the access to play those games on Microsoft's console, and I will be much more interested as I'm sort of getting out of one aspect of my career, which is video game reviews. I will now want to have access to these games earlier than I would. So even me now, somebody who tends to go on the PlayStation 4 because that's where a lot of my friends are, I'm now I will be getting this service no later than September and probably a little earlier as well. So there's a lot of different ways that Microsoft is doing and EA, are doing a really good job. So we've talked about how this is Microsoft-centric. Brian Wade, why is Sony steadfastly refusing to have this service or subscription service on their platform?
Well, they have their own services, Rich, where they don't nearly offer the same amount of value. The prices on games and PlayStation Now, and I'm forgetting the other one. They basically have two services. It just doesn't compare to what EA is offering. At the same time, they've claimed that they don't want multiple subscriptions, every publisher to have a subscription service, because people are already paying a subscription service for PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live Gold. So if you could imagine a time where we had, 5 different publishers, 5 different subscription plans, that might be a little, rough for consumers to deal with. But really, Sony has just been protecting their own interests, and I think they're going to have to change their tune here soon. Like you said, it is a differentiator. It's becoming a selling point. It maybe wasn't at first, but now, as games like Madden start going in there, several months before the next game comes out, as a NBA Live, as opposed to buying it for $30, people can get a free basketball game. Maybe it's not the basketball game they want, but it's a free basketball game essentially if you're paying for the subscription already. You get to spend time with games you wouldn't have bought otherwise. So I think that's going to have to change at some point for Sony, and it wouldn't surprise me if that happens in the next 6 months.
Yeah, I mean, let's face it. Digitally, consumers who consume a lot of media digitally are already used to this, right? Because a lot of them will have subscriptions to Hulu and to Netflix and to Amazon Prime and to HBO Go. People do not have a problem identifying. In fact, I think some people prefer it that way. Instead of having to pay an enormous cable bill and getting thousands of channels they don't want, they can buy a few bite-sized services and get exactly things that they know they will get a lot more value out of. TJ Larman, one of the other things we mentioned, or we did not mention, is that as part of the Xbox One platform, there's Xbox Live, and if you are on Xbox Live, you get Xbox Games with Gold, which when combined with EA Access, Games with Gold usually gives you one game also a month, not from EA, but from another publisher. There's a whole lot going on now with Microsoft, and sort of as we started is where we're going to close. Is this combination of services, is it really underrated? It certainly feels to me like this is underrated, underpublicized, and perhaps is one of those things that could potentially push people as we get into the new sports gaming in particular, really thinking hard about getting an Xbox One if they don't already have one and subscribing to the service.
Yeah, like you said, I'm probably going to end up getting an Xbox One hopefully sometime this year. One of the things I will do first is definitely get EA Access, even if I still am going to get all the games on my PlayStation 4, knowing that at some point I'm going to be able to get them over there, and we still have a lot of friends that aren't on PlayStation 4s or can't have both consoles. So then there'll be a point where I can be like, oh, now I have this game on this console, we can play all we want. We can start another Madden League, 6 the games out. Have fun. Yeah, and the way the PlayStation does their PlayStation Now is not anywhere near as good as this. Right now, you can go rent NBA Jam on Fire Edition for $9.99 for 90 days.
Not comparable.
Not really.
So,
comparable.
Last question for you, Brian Wiedeis. Should a sports fan interested in video games subscribe to EA Access?
Yeah, I think as with anything, it really just depends on who you are as an individual, what your interests are, how deep you want to get into this, how many sports games you buy a year, can you wait for certain sports games? If you can, I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're somebody who buys Madden, but you have slight interest in an NHL or a UFC or an NBA, it makes a lot of sense because those games are going to be getting them for cheaper. Plus, you'll be able to play your Madden 6 hours extra before it even releases, and you'll get to play these other games before they even release. And you may decide that, hey, I actually want to go out and buy this game. Or you may decide, hey, I can wait 6 months for it. But either way, what I love about EA Access, or actually what I love about Microsoft offering EA Access, is that you get to make that decision. Sony made the decision for you that you can't have it, but you can make the decision. Hey, it's worth it to me, or no, it's not worth it to me. But as long that it comes down to you making the decision, I think is what's most important here.
Well, good stuff. Thank you, Brian Weedeye from Pasta Padre, TJ Larriman for That Sports Gamer. I am Rich Grisham. We appreciate your time, and we will talk to you again really soon.